Welcome to the February 21st, 2024 Planning Board meeting of the Town of Raymond. The board will come to order. Board does have a quorum. We'll have a roll call, starting with Kevin, please. Kevin, can you hear us?
Yep, Kevin Woodbury.
Stephen Clark.
Mike Richmond. Greg Foster.
Ed Kranich. This is a public proceeding, and unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, you have the right to hear everything that is being said and to look at all the exhibits that are presented. Please notify the chair if you are unable to see or hear. The board works from a published agenda that will be considering tonight's items in the following order. Approval of minutes from last month, January 10th. Old business, we have nothing on the agenda. New business, no new business. This meeting is primarily going to be a workshop. We're going to discuss ordinance changes for the June 2024 town meeting. And then we will be followed by staff communications and updates and adjournment. In each instance, the burden is upon the applicant to demonstrate compliance with the provisions of the applicable ordinances or state law. All persons speaking, including representatives of the applicant and members of the public, are asked to stand at the microphone back there in the end of the back of the room, state their name and address and affiliation with the application. For, oppose, neutral. All persons speaking shall address the chairman. Any conversation must be held in abeyance until after the board has formally adjourned. After the board votes on the merits of each application, it will prepare a written notice of decision. Because the notice of decision may substantially affect any appeals rights, and also as a matter of courtesy, the board asks that those attending the meeting with regards to a specific application not leave until the board has completed its discussion. Appeals from adverse decisions must be filed with the Superior Court or as otherwise provided by law within 45 days of this board's decision. Also, to be certain that you preserve your individual right to file any such appeal, you must be certain that the board's record evidences your appearance this evening in opposition and the basis for your opposition. Okay, the first item will be the minutes from the January 10th, 2024 meeting. Are there any corrections or changes?
Move to accept the minutes.
Second the motion?
Second.
Okay, how does the board vote?
Aye.
Aye. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Opposed?
the
None.
motion passes unanimously. I think there is no old business scheduled or new business, so we'll move right to the workshop. And that is a discussion of ordinance changes that will be put forward for the June 2024 town meeting. I propose that we dispense with the order of the ordinances that we were going through, the revisions last time, and we just move right to the solar ordinance, because I believe that's what most of the people present in the audience are interested in.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
All right, let's see. That's,
Page 20, I believe.
yeah, our pages are numbered differently.
Yeah.
Okay.
So based on last time's discussion, this has been amended to show the addition of the buffer section at the bottom, and essentially routes people back to the site plan section of the ordinance.
So the difference would be, with this buffer, it would just be a setback, it would be a 50-foot landscape buffer strip
And visual screen.
and visual screen versus prior, we had just the setback.
Yeah.
The planning board is consistent with this commercial and industrial divisions, districts, when they abut a residence, would have the authority to reduce to no less than 25. That's just consistent with what we have in the ordinance currently for commercial uses and industrial uses when adjacent to a residential district.
Okay, so in summary, it's basically, it's going to require a 50-foot landscape buffer between abutting residential properties and the solar system.
50-foot landscape buffer strip and visual screen. So, I mean, it needs to meet both criteria. So it can't be just a
Okay, yeah, buffer
natural-
and a screen.
Right. So it has to satisfy the board that it's a buffer and a screen.
Okay, does the board have any comments on this revision?
It makes sense that it's consistent
Yeah.
with the commercial district.
So one of the things I think that's important is it does reroute back to that 10.6.0, I believe it is, which has, quite a bit more. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 standards within that need to be met for a buffer, which is the same as site plan for typical commercial use. So that explains what natural features can be used as a buffer and kind of what the board would use to determine if the buffer's adequate or not. I don't have a page. It would be 310.6. Be pretty close.
10.6.
Performance standard.
And then it's O, so it's pretty far down.
Oh, that's what I was looking for.
There you go.
The buffers.
Yep, right there.
So on my ordinance, it's page 118 of 222. I don't know how it compares to yours, but
No page numbers.
No paid numbers here.
I got page numbers at the bottom.
Yeah, that's weird.
You
You
can
guys
hold
have
it.
page numbers?
This is the most recent one.
Yeah. That's what I have.
But it's
10.6.
310-6. Oh,
Oh, here we go. Oh, it's buffers.
and the buffers. He's correct.
He actually took that
There are
out.
7 items under buffers that they would have to comply with under that section.
Standard plans.
That would include evergreens can be, I'll just read it real quick.
Yeah.
Evergreens can be used as buffers provided they are planted properly. An evergreen buffer requires 2 or 3 rows of staggered plantings. The rows should be 5 feet apart and evergreens planted 4 feet on center. 2, buffers shall be considered in or for the following areas and purposes: along property lines to shield various uses from each other, along interior roads, parallel to roads, exterior to the site to prevent confusion, particularly at night, parking areas, garbage collection areas, and loading and unloading areas, to block prevailing wind patterns to stop windborne debris from leaving the site. 3, natural features shall be maintained whenever possible to provide a buffer between the proposed development and non-compatible abutting properties and public roadways. When natural features such as topography, gullies, stands of trees, shrubbery, rock, outcrops do not exist or are insufficient to provide a buffer, other kinds of buffers shall be considered. 4, buffers shall be sufficient to shield structures and uses from the view of incompatible abutting properties and public roadways, and to otherwise prevent any nuisances, including but not limited to all loading, unloading operations, storage areas, commercial vehicle parking, waste disposal, and collection areas. 5, fencing and screening shall be durable and properly maintained at all times by the owner. 6, fencing and screening shall be so located within the property line to allow access for maintenance on both sides without intruding upon abutting properties. And 7, all buffer areas shall be maintained in a neat and sanitary condition by the owner.
Pretty strict.
Okay, so H, which is on your on your printed sheets is,
H under the solar ordinance.
yeah, so that's the only change to the solar
Currently.
ordinance.
Yeah.
Currently.
So are we going to take a vote on each one as we go through them, if we want to forward them on to the,
Well, at this point, we would hold a public hearing next month.
so after the
So-
public hearing, we'll do it?
Yep.
Really, tonight, we're just looking to try and firm these up as much as possible so that we can.
Okay,
The idea is to get board feedback as to whether additional language, whether you're satisfactory with the language, or where we want to go from here.
So, question, can you, trying to wrap my head around the 50-foot, can you help me understand what is this, a normal setback for this? I went through it today and had some questions.
So a normal setback for a commercial solar
Yeah.
operation? I think it varies, I
Okay.
think is what we're finding. And I think, at this point, I think you guys can kind of decide what you feel is reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah, the issue was there was a structural setback,
There is a structural setback.
but it was unclear in the provisions for what is required for a visual buffer. We have it in there that the board can require them to do a visual assessment, but the standards around that are vague. And now what we're doing is referring back to the regular site plan ordinance, and we've incorporated the standard that we use for both industrial and commercial uses when adjacent to a residential district, for consistency purposes.
Understood.
And the 50, I don't know where the 50 came from. I think we took a number that was basically double of the current side setback.
Correct. And I think at that meeting, we decided
Yeah.
we're better to go large and be able to take
Right.
it back.
Right.
I was just trying to understand
And
how,
under this provision, in unique circumstances, the board, with evidence from the applicant, could reduce to 25. But obviously, they'd have to meet that criteria in section O of the site plan ordinance.
and then in that situation, obviously, we couldn't have a 50-foot visual buffer. So I'm just trying to
Well, no,
not
you
pin us down.
can reduce the visual buffer to 25. The setback still has to be whatever it is.
Okay?
Buffer is different than the setback.
Yeah.
The setback is the physical setback from the structure. The buffer is what's required for screening and landscaping purposes.
Yep.
So, I mean, the two can be the same in certain cases, but, the buffer is very specific about what it has to be constructed to and what its function is. Setback is just that, just a structural setback.
Which would be 20 or 30, depending on if it's a side or rear. I think we called this a rear line, maybe?
Yeah, I think we did call
It's
it.
30 feet.
I'd have to see what, I think it'd meet the zoning. setback.
So, I mean, obviously, you guys received a bunch of information from the public, and should you guys decide to allow public comment on this, you can. You just have to essentially vote to allow that, since it's a workshop.
okay. Why don't we take a poll of the board and make a motion to accept public comment?
I move to accept public comment.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we're going to accept public comment. I assume many of the people here are here for this item. Please keep your comments factual, brief, and please don't, just reiterate things that have already been stated or are in the record. So who would like to go first? Anyone? Okay.
Dave Fowler, mainly solar, Casco, Maine.
I'm
just-
sorry, I couldn't catch your first.
Dave Fowler.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Just for clarification, so this change, can you describe how this would take place from a process perspective? Is this something that's in regards to my particular application
This
that's already
particular
pending?
amendment, from here would go to a public hearing in March, and from there would go to the select board to be placed on the warrant for the vote in June. If it is passed in June, then it would go into effect after that.
Got it. So, so how would that impact my application that's already in process?
It
shouldn't.
currently wouldn't.
Yeah, okay. I've already proposed more than that anyway, so,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Laurie Wallace, 36 Pulpit Rock Road. I'd like to know if any of you read any of the offered amendments that our attorney James Best sent you,
Yeah, I
or sent to
think,
Alex.
I did.
They were forwarded to the entire board, so I believe everyone read them.
Yeah, I believe those were forwarded today, correct?
I think those were
No.
sent yesterday.
Yesterday or today, so I mean, I just want to make sure that the whole entire board did have an opportunity to read those, because they did come in after our normal submission date, but I mean, they would be, in the future, they would be admissible in the public hearing, but
Yep.
And you were not willing to consider any of those proposed amendments?
We just got them yesterday. It was a pretty extensive list, and I think, you know, the proper place to review those would be at the public hearing next month.
So it was pretty inextensive. We tried to keep it simple so that we wouldn't offer too many
Yeah, mixing it
changes.
up with another
Um,
submittal.
Well, so if I could just, can I try to summarize what they
Please.
may have been? So this is from the February 18th letter?
Yes.
That's the correct version. So from that, I think the changes that they are requesting were outside of what we were originally charged with just looking at for buffers, but they would like to have, I think their highlight, bold, light, with bold type would be probably the easiest way to outline what the real impacts would be. The orders be amended to require that commercial solar farms be developed no closer than .4 miles from the nearest.
That's a different,
That's a different one?
no, yeah, that's your, it was sent to Alex on the 20th.
100 feet?
Would be
They
that
got
one.
changed to 1,500 feet?
This one here? Oh, okay.
And the proposed amendment is not red, but it is underlined
Yeah, okay.
in this one. It's
All right.
under visual impact assessment.
Yep. So under the changes that were requested were B, under submission requirements, B4B, locations of important plant and animal habitats identified by Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, or rare or irreplaceable natural areas such as rare and exemplary natural communities and rare plant habitat as identified by the Maine Natural Areas Program. They wanted that included as a requirement in the site plan. Under D, visual impact, they wanted to add language to 1, which would be visual description of project covering all physical elements that may...
Wait, hold up. You missed the most important thing, the third line. It says the planning board shall require
Yeah.
the submittal of a visual impact assessment.
Sorry, I missed that.
Yep.
No, rather than when necessary, they did cross that out, and it says the planning board shall require the submittal of visual impact assessment, where before it was, to your point, optional. And under 1, they have visual description of the project covering all physical elements that may be visible from public viewpoints or private residences when the project is located adjacent to residential zone properties. The end of that, or private residence when the project is located adjacent to residentially zoned property, was added. Under E, environmental standards, the preference for siting solar energy systems includes using disturbed, developed, or degraded lands, avoiding and/or minimizing impacts to wetland habitats, and avoiding impacts to intact forests. Clearing of natural vegetation shall be limited to what is necessary for the construction and maintenance of ground-mounted solar energy systems. 2, for ground-mounted solar energy systems with a physical size based on a projected total surface area that is greater than 10,000 square feet, there shall be no cutting of vegetation within the strip of land extending 1,000 feet horizontal distance inland from normal high water line of any water body, tributary stream, or upland edge of wetland. 3, no ground-mounted solar system shall be located within 300 feet of a vernal pool. Then we go into dimensional standards. 2, setbacks. Solar energy systems shall meet the structural setbacks of the zone in which they are located, except when located adjacent to residentially zoned properties or when no other appropriate place on the site exists for the solar energy system to be operate as determined by the planning board. When located adjacent to residentially zoned properties, the setback shall be 200 feet. Going down, 4, buffer for ground-mounted solar system, for ground-mounted solar energy systems with a physical size based on a projected total surface area coverage area that is greater than 10,000 square feet. The property owner shall maintain at least a 100-foot natural buffer strip of vegetation from any adjacent residentially zoned properties. The vegetated buffer must contain species of at least 6 feet tall for 90% of the buffer area. Continuing, G, other standards, number 7. For ground-mounted solar energy systems with a physical size based on a projected total surface coverage area that is greater than 10,000 square feet and located adjacent to any residentially zoned properties, the system shall not exceed 10% coverage of the lot area. Lot coverage shall be calculated based on the solar energy's total surface coverage. 8, for ground-mounted solar energy systems with a physical size based on a projected total surface coverage area that is greater than 10,000 square feet, there is a signed interconnection agreement between the entity proposing the solar energy system and a transmission and distribution utility governing the connection of the system to the utility and the ongoing operation of the system after it is connected. And that is it. So there are sections in there like that went outside of what originally was requested. They looked at submission requirements, visual impact, sort of gets into what we did. Environmental standards. There was a section in there that dealt with setbacks, buffer, other standards, and that was it. So they went beyond what our original task was, but that does not mean that you can't consider that.
We also requested, under the district regulations for rural residential, we asked, instead of it just saying solar energy systems, which I presume brings you back to the ordinance, outside of 1,500 feet from the normal high water line of any water body.
So does that,
That was the first attachment, and then there was a chart that went with that.
Okay, yeah.
does the board have any questions?
Not a question, I guess more of a comment. I would agree with the chair that there's a lot of information here that we would need to absorb and react to.
The only comment that I have, again, I have not delved into, is how I understand you had an attorney draft this for you?
Yeah, they have an attorney.
Yes.
Where or on what basis did these setbacks and requirements, were they from other ordinances? How were they determined?
They were evaluated through research by a lot of the people on Pulper Rock Road who did research on on various details, distances in multiple ordinances that exist in similar sized towns in the state of Maine. So there's no answer. It's almost as arbitrary as the 50 feet. Mm-hmm. So it's not a science. It's just what kind of town do you want to have in Raymond?
Did any of those towns have 600-foot shoreline zones?
Did not look at that. They all had residences, though.
Yeah, that's what that was one of them, Greg, that I looked at. Is like, I'm not sure where the 1,000 feet came from, because most of them either preclude it from shoreline zoning, but I don't think typically they allow them in a zone or not in a shoreline zone. Most towns, as you know, state of Maine, are 250 setback from resources. So again, I don't know
75.
where the 1,000 feet potentially came from, but and maybe there are towns out there that did that. We just haven't had time to research into.
So the select board had indicated that any proposals be in for discussion during this meeting. So I think we kind of hoped that you would, but I understand you need
Well,
more
yeah,
time to really dig into it and
One day is not.
and look at day and a half. Come on. So thank you.
So, yeah, I guess, I'm not sure if you all are aware, last week, Ed and I were at the select board meeting. A number of individuals had requested a moratorium be put into place for a period of time to allow the planning board to draft some amendments to the solar ordinance. And so I had suggested at that point that individuals who have specific changes send them to me last week so we could get them to you guys. And I think they did a great job. They used our ordinance and they put in exactly where it should go. Instead of just sending us, a letter saying these are the changes I'd like, they went in and they actually added it, which I think is extremely helpful and is exactly what I was looking for. So that's great. I think from a process standpoint, I think we need to figure out, obviously we're kind of up against the wall here with the deadline. And I think you guys probably will need to make a decision. And I think the select board essentially, I don't want to say they put it on you guys, but they left it up to you guys to make the decision, essentially.
They didn't want to exclude us. from
They
making
did.
the decision.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it. So I think you can allow what we have already put in there as an amendment to go forward to the public hearing for next month. Or you can decide that a moratorium is the right decision to allow us some time to essentially freeze any pending applications while you consider additional changes. It's kind of a difficult decision at this point, I think.
And I guess one question that Alex and I wanted to follow up on is what limitations do we have under the state statute as well? Because obviously the state is advocating for solar farms.
You mean limitations as far as the moratorium or our revisions to the?
Yeah, revisions.
More of the
Not the moratorium. Obviously, the town can do whatever it wants with a moratorium, but I'm looking more from just the statute language, because a lot of this is, the DEP has certain regulatory things. They do review a lot of these solar farms as well, and I'm not aware of them having standards as strict as this, but that being said, the town can always be more restrictive than the DEP. And a lot of this language that we have enveloped in this ordinance came from state and DEP language and from other communities that had, at the time, enacted ordinances. I know more ordinances have been put in place since then as these become more prevalent across the region. So, I mean, some of these things I think are benign, but I do think things such as setbacks are things that need to be vetted out to understand their purpose.
I think based on the proposed amendments from the public that you would not see solar developed in this town. It'd be it limits it pretty much.
Yeah. And
Excuse me, may I? I think the recommendations, Laurie Wallace, 36 Popple Rock Road, I think the recommendations that we're trying to make are not to exclude solar farms from Raymond. It's a great thing where all of us are in favor of alternatives to fossil fuels, but it would prohibit them from being put in the wrong places. Think of the town dump, which has no other use. If a company leased land from the town and put it in the town dump, the residual impacts to abutting neighbors would be non-existent. They'd have a lot more space. The ground would already be flat. This is just the wrong place in Raymond.
that being said, I don't know, because I don't know where 0.4 miles, there's residents, I think there are residents up there. I don't know if they'd be within 0.4 miles, but that just seems like a large setback based on other uses we have that are probably more intrusive than solar farms that have less. So again, I think Alex and I are trying to be consistent with what we have for other not similar uses, but other maybe more intensive uses that have less restrictions. So where does that put us with our other ordinances if we go really restrict with an unmanned commercial type operation versus a commercial business that has trucking and noise and lights and things like that? More opportunity for disruptions to residential uses, and they would have a lesser standard.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
Greg, I hate to put you on the spot, but has there been any discussion about solar at the comprehensive plan?
Not to this detail, no. Yeah, we've discussed alternative energies and promoting alternative methods of lowering the cost of, or lowering the use of fossil fuels, but
And that's-
nothing specific.
Yeah,
on-
and that's the other thing we were looking at is, you know, where's our comp plan guide us? Obviously, the previous comp plan had nothing in it because it wasn't around when the comp plan was approved. Now we have a new comp plan that's in the process of being worked on, and there's, you know, it hasn't been adopted yet, but
We've really only gone through the process of
Right.
getting things started. We haven't really addressed any ordinances or had any deep discussion about any ordinances, how it would affect the growth in Raymond. So that's to come.
Yeah. Okay.
Would it be possible to request that they put that on their agenda so that we can, you know, maybe work that into our ordinances earlier rather than later?
Wouldn't be this year's
Yeah.
changes. We wouldn't make it for that.
yeah, and I think that's the dilemma we're in, is that.
Well, I don't think the plan, the comprehensive plan would be,
Right.
you know, placed into a cement, but right now, would it be, we'd like to get the information from that group, which has a wide reach into the community, to see where they are going with that, and that would help us.
I think, Kevin, the one part that we're also struggling with is we're up against the deadlines here, so if we do any, you know, obviously we gotta do some research, probably some rewriting if we're gonna look into these other changes, and that's gonna compromise these being adopted for June, because just the way the process
Right,
runs with.
and that would have to be a special, I mean, I think this is important enough that enough people are interested in, that even if it didn't make June, there could be a special town meeting some point after that. I mean, I don't want to, we shouldn't be rushing something just because we have, you know, a deadline we have to vote on in that particular time frame.
Right. And that's all we're putting out there is the version we have now. If we make changes to it, it gets delayed. Either we've got to push it off to 2025, or we have to have a special meeting later on, and that can be only determined by the Board of Selectmen. That's not this board's determination. So I think what you need to decide tonight is, do you want to further investigate the changes suggested by the abutters? Or do you want to continue on with the work that we were put in charge of, which was the buffering? And then from that decision will dictate where we go. Because if we go to incorporate the abutters' requests, I think then that delays us being put on the June agenda at this point, just because of the time. I think there'd have to be probably some conversations with our town's attorney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the two boards would probably have to have hearings, and this may even have to go back for maybe a special workshop with the public again, if we're gonna,
Yeah.
if the board wants to look into these other changes.
I would suggest that we go through and make the change that Alex has proposed on here with just limited to the buffer, get that through, and then these other issues are gonna have to come up at a later time, and they won't make it to this June meeting, or June vote.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And then if there's, then on the moratorium,
Yeah, that's the next part of this. I think you guys probably need to decide.
I would not be in favor of moratorium.
Okay.
The applicant has gone through a lot at this point. We had hearings on the original solar panel ordinances, and I don't remember any comments from the public regarding the buffers or anything like that.
and this is not, and just for statement purposes, this is not the first solar farm that this board has reviewed. We've actually been involved, well, we as a town have been involved with three.
Yeah.
One was not necessarily the solar farm itself, it had to do with the access, but it did have impacts on the town of Raymond. You did review the one that was just up the street here, of Dens Drive. And then obviously you've got the one that's before you, and I don't want to, again, we're not here to have discussions on that application tonight, we're just pointing out the fact that it's before you, that's it. But your decision should not be based on that application, it should be just based on what you feel is proper at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with your statement, Greg. I believe we should go through with the proposed amendment that we have. The other amendments proposed by the public would have to come along later, because if we try to incorporate them, we're not going to make the June vote. So what's the point? At least we get this one change through.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, we could probably try to do a special town meeting in August. I think we could make that. That would mean we'd have to do a public hearing in June, which would give us a couple of months, couple of meetings to go through that stuff, if that's what you guys wanted to do. Ultimately, that probably wouldn't affect this pending application. The only way this would affect the pending application would be if you had a moratorium. That would be it.
A moratorium would put them on hold.
Yeah.
Based on the retroactivity
Yeah.
that they're proposing with the moratorium.
Yeah.
If it's retroactive to the start of their application, that would be October. That means the 180 days would end in April.
Yeah.
So
But it
Then it would
apparently
proceed
can
from
be
there.
extended.
it can be extended.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
That's
can
what
extend moratoriums.
That's what I was told. Yeah.
So I guess you need to clarify what, I think you have, I don't know if we've taken it's a workshop, so it's just a general motion.
Yeah, I don't think there needs to be a.
So the question would be, you'd like to put this, so just so I can summarize, you'd like to have this put on for a public hearing, next meeting to discuss just the buffer? And that you'd like to suggest maybe to the selectmen that we take up these other matters at a later date?
Yeah.
And that, as a straw poll at this, well, you haven't really voted, but I haven't heard from everybody, but the board, heard from 2 board members, I haven't heard from the other 2, where you stand on the potential for a
Moratorium.
moratorium.
Yeah, personally, I don't support a moratorium. I think we need time to evaluate these proposals, for the changes that were just submitted. And we should just go ahead with the one that Alex has given us, the buffer.
If I may speak, my name is Dave Hall. I'm at 32 Pulpit Rock. I'm one of the abutters. At the town, I have 2 comments to make. One of them, it seems like we're speaking about commercial uses. When you say, what if there were a truck loading and unloading, moving, I don't believe, would that be allowed in
it
a
would be
residential
allowed.
zone?
Again, all I'm trying to, because it actually came from, your argument was you felt that it was a commercial use.
Yes.
And I'm looking at the worst case scenario. So if you did say it was a commercial type use and that we had a zoning ordinance, because there are, I don't know what's allowed in the R zone, but there are certain
Yeah, let's pull it.
items that could be commercial level. They could be contractors, for instance, right, allowed in a commercial.
Like a
type.
school.
I think there's things in there for a contractor to have. certain-
Churches, schools, public buildings and facilities, bed and breakfast,
So
boarding
there,
homes.
all I'm saying is that in the worst
Yes.
case scenario.
Right.
Where there was a commercial use against a residential zone, where
Right.
we have commercial zone, the setbacks that we have are those that we suggested. I understand what you're saying is that, but there, you could have a situation where a contractor could go in,
Sure.
put a warehouse or a building in there, have 4 or 5 vehicles in there, operate that. The setbacks would apply, would be the same as the zoning standards. We wouldn't even apply in that case the commercial grade, right? Setback. So we're trying to put the highest magnitude of setback and buffering that we have for the higher intensive uses against a residential zone in place for a solar farm. Even though I personally struggle with the intensity of a solar farm versus that type of use.
Right.
I greatly appreciate you guys, as a residential group, you've inundated us with a lot of information, so.
And I think, you know, we were all at the selectmen meeting, and I would characterize their interest in a moratorium as saying that, you know, I believe there were statements made of, it was really, we don't want to step on the planning board. We don't want to impose this moratorium for them. We believe the planning board should be the ones to do this. Would you characterize that as correct, that they had a strong interest in the moratorium, but didn't want to overstep what is your space to work in as setting a bad precedent?
Well, they're the ones that would have to
Right.
establish the moratorium.
They seem to
They
be
just-
putting it back on you.
It's their duty.
They take the official action. We would just give our opinion or our sense of it, whether we were in favor of it or not.
And our vote is not binding. They can still take that under consideration, or they can take another measure. It's just really the board's opinion is what they're looking for at this
Yes.
point.
Bob Wallace, Pulpit Rock Road. I would like to ask the planning board as a group to take a vote on a moratorium, because at the select board, they kicked the moratorium vote back to the planning board. And they said, if we did not like what was done, we can go back in front of the select board. So I formally request that you do vote on a moratorium, yes or no, so that we have what we need to do to ensure that this doesn't proceed forever, which at this point it possibly could.
I don't know if we need a motion, but we just get a sense of the board's position.
Yeah, again, this wasn't posted for a public hearing or anything, but again, to the residents' request, you could take a straw poll and forward that on, and it is what it is, and
Okay. We'll have a straw poll among the members of the board.
Can I make a comment first? I mean, I would be in favor of a moratorium starting now, not retroactive, because the people that in any town that are going to develop a piece of land, they follow exactly the ordinances we have in place. You can't, personally, I don't think you can step in and say, no, that's not what's in place. We're going to change that on you now. If we want to try to prevent this from happening in the future, then I would say, yeah, let's have a moratorium until we can get the ordinances the way that you know, the majority of people are happy with in the town.
What the selectmen were considering was a retroactive moratorium, which would affect the current applicant. And personally, I don't agree with that also, as you just stated, your opinion. But,
so I think there's already, is there a specific moratorium language that has been submitted?
Well, I don't know. We could ask if they want to clarify the request. I mean, they're making the request of you guys, so if they would like to confirm that it's retroactive, that's their request, or if they're fine with doing it from today.
well, we should give our position before, because
Yep.
they would have another meeting, it would be, 3 weeks out, and then it would be
I
after that.
thought I read, I don't know if I printed it up, but I thought I saw an email
Yeah,
where
there is an email. I can
there was
forward
an
it.
email that was submitted that was making, I think the formal
Yeah.
request was retroactive. So I think that's what you should base your straw poll on, and then if you want to have a secondary conversation per Kevin's discussion, you can, but I think right now you have,
October 10th, 2023
Yeah.
is the date that they're requesting.
All right, so why don't we take a straw poll if the board is in favor of moratorium retroactive to October 10th, 2023? What are people's opinions? I'm not in favor.
Not in favor of retroactive.
I would agree with Kevin. I'm in favor of moratorium, but not retroactive, but also with the understanding that I think the submission at hand would still be, open to our review.
Yeah, I also second that. And again, back to the buffer zones and clarifying those.
So you're
Yeah,
all
that's my stand. Yeah.
no. Officially, you're no on this particular one, but there could be consideration for if you wanted to make it
Going forward from,
going forward from whenever date the council decides.
Correct.
So as far as being retro, you're no, but you're open to moratorium from date if they decide forward. Okay. You clear
Yep.
on that?
Yep.
Sandy, you got that?
And I know we're not talking about old business, but I still think we do have the power to order a visual impact statement.
Yeah, and Kevin, let's not, I don't want to convolute these two conversations, but you are correct. The board still has opportunities to require buffers by the applicant, and that's something we'll take up with the application in March.
So there's 2 more opportunities for public comment on the proposed amendment. So it'll go to you guys next month for public hearing, and it goes to select board
Yep.
for public hearing. So there's still time.
all right, so we'll inform the select board that we are not in favor of retroactive moratorium.
Yep.
And then I guess we have to wait from the selectmen what we do next, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what the response is.
So the second motion would be you are in favor of moving this to a public hearing based on the changes for the buffer.
Yes.
Somebody should,
Okay.
do we need to make a formal?
No, we need
No,
a
we don't need a formal, no.
Um,
It's a workshop.
no, I don't know.
I think you can kind of envelop it as to one.
We only do the motions at the public hearing,
Right.
or after the public hearing.
Okay.
Will people be advised, is this public hearing prior to, especially the abutters, so that they can inform
It's
some of the 42
posted on
households?
the newspapers, it's posted online.
Yeah.
The meeting will be March.
Well, that's on the agenda to discuss later. We can have Sandy reach out to, if you want to be the point person.
Sure,
Let you know
that'd be
when that
fine.
public hearing will be.
Should be posted on the
We'll
website.
post it on the website.
It'd be on the
Okay,
website.
well,
That
it's
bring-
funny because you go into the website and then today there's something brand new, you know, and then you get something from the Wyndham Eagle that's been
So the dates,
filed.
the dates are in for discussion right now.
Yeah, we're going to discuss the
They're
date of the
the
next meeting.
13th?
Well,
Yeah, the 13th or the 20th, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
I'd
going
like
to be either
to,
the 13th or the 20th.
I'd like
so-
to take a vote among the among the board about that
Yeah.
next meeting. I'd like to hold it on the 20th. I propose that we do that because that will allow our full staff to be here.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can't make it the 13th, right?
You can do that, well, we can take things out of order, but we can do that now just so the
Yeah.
public's aware.
Yeah, that's what made me think of that.
Okay, so there's a motion right now by Ed to have the meeting
March meeting on the 20th. and-
for the
Is it
ordinances.
Wednesday?
Yes.
For the-
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So we do,
Do you want to just do April 2? March 20th, yeah.
Yeah.
we have the application and the public hearing for the
Yeah.
2-for-1. Ooh, it's gonna be a fun meeting. Bring your sleeping bags.
Bob will be back, I hope.
Yeah, and then Bob requested too, while we're on the topic, Bob requested the same thing in April, that we pushed out a week.
Okay, I move that we postpone the April meeting 1 week.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
That would be April 17th, guys.
Okay,
Thank you, Sandy.
thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
And that March 20th date, you know, really pushes us to the end of our window with the selectmen and their public process to get on for the
Yeah.
June meeting. So it's do or die on that 20th, basically.
Okay.
Just so the board's aware, with the other ordinances as well. So they're all individually taken into account, but just putting it out there. So, okay.
Okay, so,
Want to go back in the regular order now?
yeah, that wraps up the solar
Ed, just so, Ed,
Yes.
Peter Levitt wants to say something.
I'd like to hear Peter's, that's what I was going to say, I'd like to hear Peter's input.
Somebody had their hand raised online.
Oh, okay, yeah, I didn't see.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. Just this is more informational than anything else. As far as the comprehensive plan is concerned, I think Greg was right on as far as where we're at. We're about halfway through the comprehensive plan right now, as far as getting all of the chapters in order. At this next week's monthly meeting of the comp plan, we're slated to start talking about the future land use chapter, which I think is pertinent to a lot of the ordinances in the town, and where we've got a sense of what the people of Raymond have responded to as far as how they want to see the land use of Raymond for the future go. Certainly among those topics is going to be things that include zoning and putting commercial properties adjacent or into residential zones, and certainly solar farms will be one of the things. We've touched on it slightly, but we'll be getting into detail on it, starting with the meeting next week. On March 19th, we actually have a workshop for the community on future land use in the town of Raymond. We hope to get a lot of feedback and information from the town concerning land use in general as far as the comprehensive plan, and I would certainly encourage everyone who's interested to be heard to show up at that workshop, because basically the input that we get through online surveys and through these workshops is really the information that the Comprehensive Plan Committee is going to use to craft our recommendations to the Planning Board, and thus to the selectmen, and thus to the citizens of the town of Raymond on where they want to see Raymond going. I wish I could give you more information right now. Unfortunately, we're scheduled to finish this comprehensive plan January of next year. So we're seeing a lot of these issues come up, a lot of discussions, everything from affordable housing to what impacts affordable housing, like certain requirements for sprinkler systems and the like. How does that impact the town staffing? How does that impact the town budget? All those things need to be discussed. So just in answer to Kevin's question about guidance, I'd say stay tuned. And there's going to be a wealth of information that's going to come out of these workshops, and the final version of the comprehensive plan that my understanding will be voted on either at town meeting or on a referendum for acceptance by the town. And I've said this from the inception. It's not the comprehensive plan committee's plan. It's the town's plan. And all we're doing is collecting the information and formalizing it in a format such that the state will accept it. So just wanted to give that input and give that information.
May I ask a question?
Thank you,
about
Peter.
that?
Sure, I'd answer a question.
I do have a question, because if you go on the town website and you go through the ordinances and everything, there is a comprehensive plan from 2004 that does have some modifications to it. So are we saying as a town that that comprehensive plan does not exist and we do not look at that comprehensive plan? Or is that comprehensive plan that was dictated by the state still in effect?
Yeah, well, I guess what I'd say is that the state has certain criteria for accepting a comprehensive plan, but they don't dictate it. It's the comprehensive plan is developed by the citizens of the town. And as far as to your first statement or question, the answer is that from now until the time that the town accepts the new revised comprehensive plan, we are guided by the existing 2004 comprehensive plan.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay, so we've covered the solar amendment enough.
Thanks, Peter. So starting back to the top.
Okay.
Building.
So, number one is the building construction ordinance. A couple of minor changes to this since the last time. The attorney did review it and just had a formatting change to one of the subsections. And he took the dates out for the specific codes just because it'll save us having to amend it in the future when MUBEC updates building codes.
Can we have to catch up to the right page.
Right at the
beginning.
Second page.
Right at the beginning. We're going right in the same order now.
Accessory.
Chapter 400.
Yeah.
Chapter 400.
Chapter 300, isn't it?
This is,
Yeah, it shows ours.
all ours is 300.
You at the very beginning?
Yeah.
Go to the very, very beginning. Right from the,
Yes?
yep. You flip the page over. Right there.
Oh, the building code standards?
Yes.
Oh, all right.
That's the one.
Yeah, so just minor formatting changes. Really, there's nothing new there.
Yeah.
Moving on to number 2. Number 2 is the accessory dwelling units. So, I had a conversation with the state, spoke with our shoreline zoning coordinator about this. The attorney has reviewed this. He had no changes. He thought it was fine. It kept us in line with LD 2003, and he felt it was, okay with shoreline zoning. So I went to the state to just make sure we were good on the shoreline zoning side, so they weren't going to reject it. They don't have any issues. He went up the ladder, and he did have one issue, actually.
Yeah, he did have one. I was going to say he had one.
The only issue is he didn't like G, which is the one that we spent time going back and forth on. He liked the rest of it, thought the rest of it was fine, but does not like G because when you talk about expansion in the shoreland zone, you're talking about something very different than what we have here. So essentially he said if we're going to keep G, we need to take the word expansion out. Because it means something different.
So addition?
Alteration. If an alteration is made to create additional space.
I think we were looking at, I think we were looking at it from a standpoint of an addition, right?
Yeah.
You weren't looking at it necessarily as an internal alteration.
Yeah, I mean, we can just leave addition. One of the things he also suggested, if we leave that section in, that we should add something about it being beyond 250 only. But it doesn't really matter because we aren't allowing them within 250 anyways, so I think we can say that. You wanted to add for, additions beyond 250 feet or 75. The state doesn't do anything with side setbacks, so they don't care about the side setback thing.
So instead of expansion, should we say addition to?
Yeah. I think if we take the word expansion out,
Just take the word expansion out and just replace it with an addition to.
I don't get what
Yeah.
that's all about.
Because we're not allowing them in the shoreline zone.
well, we would be allowing.
We would allow, because the state shoreline zone's 250, ours is 600, so we're saying we're not allowing them within the 250 foot from the resource. Within the shoreline zone, they're allowed from 250 to 600.
Or they would be.
Oh, they would be.
Just,
Nope.
yep.
We have a weird shoreline zone, different. The interesting thing is, I showed Alex, and this is available online, but there's an LD 2000 guidance from the state, which answers many of the questions you may have. Some of them leave me with more questions, some are answered. It's a good document you can go online and find. One of the things that we did find was for the ADU, right, you could require twice the lot size,
Like we currently do.
like we currently do in shoreline zoning, so,
But we could require that everywhere if we wanted to.
yeah, so I don't know
We don't.
how you want to.
Seems a little bit harsh if it's not.
I think the way we have it where they're not allowed within 250 is a fair compromise in the shoreline zone myself. Because we're not putting that impact directly on the lake, it's further back. And I think it may address some of our concerns about Airbnb potential with these, becoming a big push. If you're back 250, you're not seeing the lake, your marketability for Airbnb probably reduces some. Where if you're
We're talking about
if
a
you're within
separate unit, is that right? As
Yeah,
opposed
well, it
to,
could be a separate, or it could be detached or attached.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter with the ADU.
But it's a separate standalone unit, so its own kitchen, its own bathroom, its own bedroom.
And under our provisions, the ADU, if as a limitation, has to be a minimum of 190 square feet or a max of 1250.
Yep.
So if you got a 1250 square foot living space, that's that's a decent rental for summer. But again, if we're worried about the impact to our resources, moving them back 250 should reduce that impact where they're not right up on the shoreline.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So we just want to do the friendly amendment to addition, strike
Yeah,
expansion.
unless there's anything else you guys would like to do on this.
I know we got some people in the audience. I don't know if there's any more. Anybody?
Yeah, does anyone here wish to speak about these other amendments, or are you all here strictly for the solar?
We're here for the copy.
This?
I don't think so.
I don't have it with us.
You wanted a copy of the changes?
Oh, we don't have any extras.
So essentially, they restrict accessory dwelling units closer than 250 feet to a lake, closer than 75 to a stream. The total number of bedrooms or potential bedrooms can't exceed the septic design for the system in place. If so, a replacement or expanded system must be designed. The accessory dwelling unit has to be a minimum of 190 square feet or a maximum of 1,250 square feet of living space, which is different than footprint. So that's really, there's a definition now of living space in our ordinance. No more than one accessory dwelling unit allowed on a permitted parcel. Setbacks would be 30 feet for a new detached structure. For an addition to an existing structure would have to meet, which would have to be 30 feet if it increased the living space by more than 50% of what existed at the date of inception of the ordinance. As per state law, no additional parking is required for the accessory dwelling unit beyond the parking requirements of a single family. And living space has been defined as a climate-controlled area within a dwelling used for living, sleeping, eating, or cooking purposes, and excludes such areas as garage, attics, and utility spaces. So that's actually an important definition. Forward.
All right, we good to move on, or?
So you're good with the friendly amendment just to change expansion to addition?
Yeah.
Per request of DEP?
Yep.
Anybody else? Good.
Everybody else okay with that? Yep.
All right.
Kevin?
Just that last definition, so those, you say or, those are all ors, or?
No,
and?
it says climate, this is verbatim, a climate-controlled
No,
area.
I'm looking at it. I'm looking
okay.
at it right now.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, so if a person doesn't have if they build this and there's no kitchen in there, is that still defined as an ADU?
No.
Doesn't look like it.
No, I think if it doesn't have a kitchen, then it becomes
The
a bunkhouse,
accessory-
basically.
Well, that's why I specifically looked at the word or
Yep.
cooking purposes. So it had to be,
Yeah.
you have to and all those things to make it legal.
Because I think that you have to have the 3-point criteria, right, to become a dwelling. You got to have living, cooking,
That'd be
And bathroom.
the definition above it. Accessory dwelling unit shall contain a kitchen and bathroom, which are separate
That's what I,
from
right.
Yep.
and not used in common.
So if it didn't have that, essentially it'd be a bunkhouse.
We had bunkhouse, yeah.
Okay, I just worried about that.
We deal with that
When you
one
say
a lot.
or cooking purposes, I mean, the thing above it does, but then you define living space, which is not the same thing if you say or. I'm just saying. You might
Yeah,
want
it has to be all
reword
three.
that.
To be a living space, it has to have all those components, correct?
Yeah.
Well, if you build a bunkhouse that's just a bedroom, it doesn't have a kitchen, that would still be living space.
That's not a dwelling.
A climate-controlled area within a dwelling. So if you have a dining room for eating, that would be living space, right?
What is it?
Right? But if you had a bathroom
Yeah, it
and.
doesn't mention bathroom and.
Bathroom is not mentioned, no.
Right,
Let
okay,
me
so then
see.
if you just had, if you had a living room and you had some bedrooms, it would not be called an accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah, because it says sleeping. It doesn't refer to as bedroom, but it says sleeping. Eating is obviously a dining. Cooking is a kitchen. Living. Right, could be anything, but does not
So
say.
pretty much it's the kitchen determines.
Yeah.
A second kitchen, then it's an accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah, what about bedrooms?
I just don't think that's completely clear.
Yeah, this is Alex Grounds right here. He's the one that gets challenged on this one weekly.
No, I mean, the accessory dwelling unit above it, terms defined, but then living space doesn't completely
No,
define
I
it
get what you're saying.
explicitly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess open to, I guess, suggestions on how you'd like to word that.
Well, I think you have to include bedroom, right? Or bathroom. Kevin's saying bathroom, because up above it has kitchen and bathroom. So living space, you'd include a bathroom within the living space,
I
correct?
think you'd have to have a minimum of a kitchen, a bathroom, a
Sleep.
bedroom, and a living room.
Right.
That would define.
So the question
a
is, do we
dwelling
need to
unit.
add a bathroom to that definition?
That would define a living space.
Yeah, probably should be added because otherwise it's not going to fall into computation for area.
Right. So if you're taking a living area, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to exclude my bathroom out of that living area.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense.
Some minor
Yeah.
addition.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, cool.
Commercial.
So commercial, no changes to this one. This is to allow for multifamily dwellings within the commercial district. This hasn't really been updated in a couple of meetings. Any comments?
Only question I have would be if you had a lot that had 25,000 square feet
Mm-hmm.
and you had a multifamily on that,
Yep.
is there a limitation due to septic that may require it to be larger than 25,000?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I just want to make sure because septic rules can override
I think if
density.
you've got at least 20,000 square feet, you're okay.
But it all depends on the number of bedrooms, right?
Yeah, well, you kick into other stuff.
Okay.
You
so
could have other
additionally-
site limitations where you may not be able to
Yeah.
get the septic in there.
Yeah,
that
but
would-
as far
that
as
would
size,
rule,
I
right?
think you're okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Do we want to put an outlier in there subject to septic rules?
I don't think we need to, because it's
Okay.
gonna, it actually will be, with this new building code ordinance, it'll be in
Okay.
there. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, moving on to
Well, you had
4.
H-headed multifamilies.
Yeah,
That just allows it, right?
yeah.
Okay. Terms.
All right, number 4. This was the general code cleanup, I believe. Oh, no, this is affordable housing.
Affordable housing.
So this is a new one.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, gosh.
So what Alex did was he looked at the cluster development, the cluster subdivision ordinance, where we thought it would be
Open space.
most appropriate to envelop affordable housing, because you already allow the same density, but in a confined area with open space, basically. So the idea was there could be opportunities for affordable housing. For instance, we look at Honey Hill.
Yep.
Raymond Hills, the development we just did, obviously there was an opportunity there where maybe you could have done more higher density and got some affordable units in there. And the idea was to give the developer some incentive to promote that.
So the incentive is a 1.5 times increase in the net residential area allowed under the net residential density calculation. There's also an allowed 20% building height and a 20% reduction in lot size and lot frontage. So it's a fairly substantial increase, but with that, there's some standards on, it's got to be affordable housing for 30 years. You've got to have, some deed restrictions.
You got to have the rental, it's got to fall within below the 80% of the local area median income at the time of the initial occupancy.
Is this just for rental affordable housing, or is there any provision for owner?
For owning homes, the occupancy of all units designated limited to households at or below 120% of the local area median. So we do have both options.
So rental or...
So if someone buys a new affordable housing, 10 years, they want to move, are they required to sell it to someone that meets the criteria for affordable housing?
Yeah, it's a 30-year.
So it would be a
30-year
deed
deal.
restriction?
It'd be a deed restriction, so it's transferable, but it'd be a deed restriction.
Yeah.
In exchange for the, the 20% increase in height, and reduction in lot size and frontage, and the higher density.
Does it affect their pricing of their sale price? I mean...
Well, I guess it's market-driven, right?
Yeah.
It's market-driven and income-driven, right? So as that value increases over time, say somebody buys a home, 10 years later they sell it, whatever that increase in income gap is, would follow that. They don't go back to the original.
No.
It'd be whatever at that time of sales to meet that purpose.
So it could double in value, and they could sell it, but as long as they sell it to someone who meets the criteria for affordable housing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think they can make a huge profit on these.
No, I don't think that's the goal. And I think, if you look at the definition, there would be a new definition added for affordable housing development, which is what these would need to fall under. So this isn't really designed for, obviously, one-off, I want to build an affordable duplex. It's really designed to be in a open space subdivision. So if someone wants to come in with, a 10-house subdivision, and it's going to be an affordable housing project, they could go under this. But if they just want to do a duplex or a multi-unit, then it wouldn't fall under that. We did get some help from Kate Birch from North Star on this one, who pointed us in the direction of the state model ordinance and a couple other towns that we pulled this from. So,
Alex, could somebody come in and almost do a mixed type of development? This section here is affordable and this section isn't, and you would have to...
we've talked about that.
Yeah,
maybe a possibility, yeah.
Could be like a hybrid almost,
Yeah.
and
I could see developers doing that.
I guess we just have to be careful about how we evaluate the density.
The
density calculation could get a little, we'd have to, I'm not gonna say negotiate, but we'd have to study that with the board carefully, how they computed that. Because if they came in with half standard full market, you'd have to deduct that amount of area out of the subdivision, then what was left could be qualifying possibly for the 1.5.
So it is
But I mean, I think we're open to the possibility.
It's similar to what you guys did a while ago for John Chase on Valley Road, where it was half
Greg's maybe the only one left.
I remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Elderly housing?
Yeah, it was it was before we got rid of the
Yeah,
elderly
same
housing
thing,
density.
yeah.
That was half and half, but
Yeah.
It wasn't too successful. There's only rocks there now.
Yeah.
it's gonna remain rocks.
Yeah, I think that
Was it
one's.
HUD money ran out or something
I don't know.
like that happened?
Yeah.
They got kibosh to it.
I think Chase ran out of money.
Well, they did too.
So what do you guys think? Is that something that?
I mean, it's a start. It's a start, and I know we probably will, as the state develops this further and we get more clarity. But I do feel it's a start and it opens up much more than we've had in the past.
I mean, we may be looking next year after the comp plan goes through, having to update that section based on changes or
Yeah,
something.
I agree. We got to go with a start, get the ball rolling, and if it needs to be revised in the future.
Right.
We've been
That'd
talking
be
about
your-
doing something like
Well, and again, we'll just need to see where the market is, right? And if developers are even interested, because I mean, a lot of these affordable housing projects are based on regions and availability towards resources and towns like Raymond, Poland, Wyndham, not in the inner urban areas are now becoming targets because our land is obviously more affordable than it is in the inner cities, but there's the distance from resources, so.
I did get a call yesterday from a real estate agent who has a client who's looking to develop a subdivision, a development that's modular homes, not mobile, modular, affordable housing, and they're just calling towns to see what towns have for programs for affordable housing, and at this point I kind of had to tell her we don't really have anything in place. It's just a standard subdivision.
Or manufactured housing.
Yeah. So I think, what they're probably finding is there are some municipalities that have, Wyndham has something very similar to this, for example.
But Wyndham's in a little bit better situation is that they're gonna have public water and public sewer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can have smaller lots.
So we have sections that may have public water, but we're nowhere near public sewer. And that kind of limits a little bit of the density.
Yeah.
These are sprinkled.
Well, they would be a subdivision.
They'd be a
so
subdivision,
they'd
so
have
right
to-
now, they'd fall under the subdivision ordinance which requires sprinklers.
Or hydrants, if you wanted to do something like that.
Yeah, if they're on public water.
If you had public water. Yeah.
That's your.
I just know certain developers don't do Raymond because affordable wise because of that.
But I mean, I believe Wyndham requires.
I don't know about in their
No,
subdivisions.
they have sprinklers.
Yeah, they have
Fire
sprinklers.
They're within 100.
100 feet, yeah. I know Gorham requires sprinklers
Yep. Formulas everywhere.
everywhere. That's everything. And I think,
Yeah.
I know Westbrook does, but they're the larger communities. But the outliers, I think towns are starting to split up as far as where they're going with sprinklers and units. Some towns are adopting them. I think it all depends on fire codes and fire ratings and equipment available. I know I work out in Bridgeton. They have, you can do sprinklers, you can do dry ponds, fire ponds, cisterns. If you're within a certain distance of a existing hydrant, you can do what they call relay stations, which is basically a turnout so that you can pull the pumper truck up and do the transfer without blocking the road. So there's other things other towns have. I just don't know what's best.
Yeah.
And none of them are cheap. You put a cistern in, that's big money.
If you do these apartments like you guys are talking, I mean, is it more taxing on the utilities of the town, and does it bring a good tax benefit? Like, is this gonna be more calls going there for emergency calls?
I don't know if the emergency calls go up at all, and I don't know, I'm with affordable housing, so again, I don't know what the percentages of impacts it would have, for instance, on the school system. There'd be children of age going to school that may have an impact on the school system. Depends on the density and the number, but
Yep.
overall, unless it's a massive development, I can't see it having a major pull on town resources.
Does an 8-unit?
Could he use the podium, please?
I'm sorry. I just ask questions. I'm not actually fighting over the.
No, that's fine. It's discussion.
What's your name? Where are you from?
Jeff Morris, 13 Anderson Road. I'm just wondering, does an 8-unit apartment have the same tax benefit as 8 houses? Does it still bring in a high-level tax, or is it a lower tax with more?
Probably the single family, I'm guessing the single family would appraise higher because they're individual units. The 8 units would be a lower tax,
Yes.
because it's a rental, most likely.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say Derek's probably the best one to answer that. I don't have anything to do with taxes, fortunately. I get enough bad stuff, but,
I think just from a straight up marketing value point, I mean.
yeah.
But from affordability standpoint, you probably can hit the target of affordability easier with a rental unit than you can a single family.
There was an 8-unit in Wyndham just went on the market. Their taxes are $8,000 a year, so it's $1,000 per unit. If you build,
Yeah.
if you build 8 homes, you're not getting taxed $1,000.
I wish. I live in Gray. I wish. Oh,
Right,
God.
yeah, so, like, I don't know, like, it's one of those things where, I'm not gonna talk about it.
No, but I think the idea is that, obviously the benefit, there are benefits to affordable housing. You're bringing people in the community who are at workforce age. You're able to put them in living conditions that benefit everybody. But there's such, and I've said it to this board several times. Right now, the way we've got it structured, the term affordable housing in this town's an oxymoron. You can't hit that medium income and build a home with the house pricing, the material costs, labor costs, land costs. You're not even close. So the only way I have seen it in recent developments working in other communities has been through multifamily or rental situations. It's the only way you come even close to being able to reach that. Is that the ultimate goal for affordable housing, to have people rent their whole life? I hope not. Hopefully it's a stepping stone that they can, get their life and their career on goal, and then maybe move up to a single family home if things work out. But at least it gives them living conditions that are reasonable.
So, are you guys comfortable moving that forward, since this is really the first bite at it? Or do you want this one to get held off another year?
I think we should try to get it going.
Okay.
I agree, it looks like a good start.
I think it puts us in the right direction, and maybe it's not enough, but at least, and I think the completion of the comp plan will put us in a position next year.
We'll have more information.
We'll have more information and maybe by then, some of these things at the state level will be a little more straightforward. I mean, I still think there's a lot of questions coming out of Augusta with how we implement all these things.
All right, so moving on, we already did solar, so going to 6, nothing's changed. That's just general code cleanup. Section that they found some inconsistencies.
Clerical, pretty straight.
Sandy, you had sent me an email. There was an error in this section on one of the bulks, I believe. I see it. It's on the top of. So I'll fix that. Area is not crossed out.
Yep.
So I'll fix that.
Which one is that?
It's page 3 of 24-6.
Oh, area.
Very top area is not crossed out. So next would
Wanted to
be.
be sure before you got to the last draft.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Area bulk. It's a new word.
So the next item is the zone map changes. Nothing's changed with these. It's still the same 2 maps, one on Main Street and one next to the commercial district over near the canals. If you guys are still good with these, we need to send out a certified letter to all of the people affected by these changes and the abutters, direct abutters, which is about
105.
105. So we got to do that. They got to have that 2 weeks before the public hearing, so we got to send it out like this week. Well, we got a little bit more time now because of the meeting.
Yeah, by the
days.
29th, it's got to be done. I figured that out earlier.
So, you guys are good with it, we'll get that out.
So
I don't know what that's gonna bring in, who knows? We'll see.
So we call this commercial village fringe zone?
Well, it's just gonna be village and commercial.
Okay.
It's not a new district or anything.
But
That's
it's-
just what I have
But it's outside the,
file.
no, but what's this area on the second one?
The purple,
Yeah.
that's staying shoreline. It's just beyond the 600.
Okay.
So it could be brought into village, but
Everything around it's village, right? Obviously.
so
The yellow, yeah, the second one, the yellow is commercial,
It's a commercial one. Talk about this one, right?
and the purple is hatched is LLR2.
Yeah.
Maybe he's still on this.
Which map did you have on the first one?
Second one.
Jim's looking at the second one.
See, 600 feet
Yeah, the first one's,
around this.
yeah, the first one's straightforward, the
Yeah,
second one,
I didn't have your email.
good. No, you're good. I think you guys know what I'm here for, so.
yeah, the second one's just a little more
Affects these
involved, I think.
commercial ones.
The second one is a little bit more involved. The first one, we're a little bit more aggressive.
Okay, I understand it now. They're in the shoreline zone, but it'd be commercial. No. Is the yellow, is yellow? in
Yellow is
shore-
village.
Yellow is village, or commercial village,
So I don't know what they mean.
right? That's what it says here in the map itself. Down, I'm looking at this.
Yep, the key at the bottom.
Yep.
I wish I could get there. This is,
I have one of them.
come on.
It's confusing
I
as
didn't
hell.
even realize this new one had been printed. I missed that somehow.
When's a good time?
Yeah, this is, it's talking about this. It shouldn't have been shoreline zone.
In a minute, once we get through this one.
Around.
Yeah.
It affects these other.
I just want to make sure I'm not missing it.
Nope.
And they want to take it out of shoreline zone. So that's fully active commercial.
Huh?
Color anyway.
Yeah.
Yep. LR2 outside of
Shoreline
600.
zone.
That could be brought into the village.
But it's two-sided.
So, but right now
But
we're
we
posing, okay.
In this particular.
All right, so just clarity on that second sheet, the dash purple is LLR2 outside the 600 feet. The yellow dashed would be commercial village.
Whoa, deep
Village.
village. The yellow lines are village,
Right.
and the purple would stay shoreland.
Yeah, we should just make the change on the map that's just village.
Yeah, yeah. And then there is 3 lots that would go further into commercial.
I'm easily confused.
Right, the red, or the cross-hatched red. Yep, okay.
Oh, maybe it's back on this.
I can try and bring it up on the screen if you want.
Yeah.
I don't have any trouble with this at all.
Okay.
Nothing's changed from the last meeting.
No, nothing changed from the last meeting, it just,
Everything looked good to me.
I think it's just from the public standpoint, just clarifying it a little bit easier, because it's, commercial village kind of popped my head a little bit.
Hold on one sec. See if I can do this.
Yeah, so there's 3 things. There's village converting to commercial, LLR2 converting to village, and LLR2 outside 600 staying at LLR2.
Yeah.
Shoreline zone.
All separated by basically a road, right?
Yeah. In this case, it's the road.
The road. Clearwater?
Yeah. Yeah, so there's nothing that's changed on here.
Maybe for the public hearing, we just have a display, or so we can bring it up.
Yeah.
I don't think we need it tonight, but maybe for the public hearing, we can just bring it up so we can all see it. Unless you guys have questions,
I have too many sets of
Yeah.
revisions.
I think we just need to display.
Yeah, we can do a larger
Yeah, we should
color.
put it on the screen.
Right.
and Have
Yeah.
everyone be able to find it.
Okay, and you got one more? Business license?
Well, that
Oh, floodplain.
do you want to ask about your suggestion? So this isn't one that is in front of you right now, but we have another zone change that we would like you guys to possibly explore. Do you want to intro it?
Yeah, Jeff Morris, I guess 31 Main Street. So I have a relatively small lot on Main Street, and I was just seeing if it could be, it's out of the village zoning, and I was just seeing if we could, if there's a reason for it, or if there, And if it's something we could explore, put it back into village zoning.
It's on that same map.
It's
The one, the previous one, the first one,
It's
right?
a,
First map, if you
it's
look under that little square in the top right, you'll
It's a-
see a lot that looks like a T.
yeah, it's a relatively
Yep.
small lot, and
All the way to the right, basically.
So it's this one.
the snake, I think it comes from the snake, or what is that river? What's that river out
Yeah,
back?
so that 600 is from the Tenny River.
Yeah. Tenny
Other
River,
side of this hill.
It just has a weird loop that comes over and gets
3 lots there. that are
three,
all-
three of our lots, and,
What's this one?
Yeah, that one right there. You got it.
I was just seeing if there's a
That's in
reason why
Shoreland
it's,
zone too?
Is that
Couldn't
600
be.
feet?
It's 600
Yeah,
feet.
it's
It
well
hasn't
beyond.
always been 600 feet, but it is now. I don't know when it changed, but you
It's
can.
weird because there's like a 40-foot embankment up and then down the backside to the river, but it's
Yeah,
there's a
that
whole,
600
there's
is
a
not
whole,
from the front of it.
Yeah, that came up when we did something years ago for the vet down there too.
Yeah.
I'm just looking to see if there's a reason, I mean, it's, all the watershed goes the opposite direction of the whole lot is shedding back the opposite direction, and, I was just seeing if there was any
So that's
reason why we couldn't bring that back to,
another section in town where we are quite a bit more strict than what it should be, and we are bringing portions of the village into shoreland, which those lots are very small. So if you put these small village lots into the shoreland zoning ordinance, you've got basically nothing you can do with these already very tiny lots. So it does make it pretty difficult.
These aren't, there's no public water here, correct?
there is public water.
There is
not-
public water there.
yeah.
Goes up to the fire station, right?
Yes,
Yep. Okay. So it's on public water too.
So this is obviously one that, we're not looking at bringing this in for the public hearing right now, I think, but.
yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know if this is the time or place. to
No,
do
I
it,
think
but
it's a.
Are these
Look at-
lots, are there houses on them now? Or are
There's
they
houses
vacant?
on, I
So
believe,
why
all
did
the
we
lots.
incorporate- 'cause we
This is
said
right next to
part
the
of
church.
Sebago Lake? Panther Run?
I don't know why they put 600, but
Is that the old Grange?
Yeah, yeah, but I,
It's not the old Grange, is it?
It's next to, so the Grange, I believe, is on one side of the church, and we're on the opposite side, I believe,
Okay.
right? Like, it's the old pastor's house.
Oh.
It's a small T lot that's just, like, it's just not much to
It
do with
doesn't
it with
apply
all
with
the
all
different
the-
zoning, but I was just seeing if there was a reason why it was not why the village got taken out of that side of Main Street, I guess. Village zoning.
so I mean, I can do some research if you guys are interested in looking into it.
And it's
You
not,
know-
it's not anything I'm like, not developing tomorrow, so it's just more of a question of curiosity.
so how does that work if it's village and LRR1?
The shoreline zone takes over essentially.
So does it change anything?
Yeah, oh yeah, makes it way more strict.
2 acres and
Right.
40,000.
So, so if we do this when we have to move the shoreline zoning, correct?
Yeah, so we'd be looking at having to move the shore. So, and essentially they've given this the Great Pond setback, the 600-foot shoreland off of a Great Pond. So, which it obviously isn't. And it wasn't always 600. At one point in time, it was smaller. I don't know. Is that anything you remember?
Gosh, I don't remember.
I don't.
Yeah, we monkeyed with it a while ago. I don't remember that specific.
And I want to say it was maybe 2014, 13, somewhere when that zone map changed.
Yeah.
But
Is it the setback is from the wetlands and not the lake?
It's from the river, yeah, it's not the lake.
It's not
River
it's not
behind
a great pond, it's a river segment.
yeah,
Tenny River.
If it flows into a lake, then it's shoreline zone like a lake.
yeah, and I think
Which
that's
may
what.
be the reasoning to
It could be,
600
yeah.
instead of 250.
Do we need a DP determination on that?
Yeah, I can reach out to the state and see what, I mean, they're gonna tell us, 250 is what's required for something like that.
We need to make all of it 250.
That's
agree.
what I understand, we were trying to bring everything.
Well, then maybe
back
that's
to
maybe
250,
that's what we do here, though. I mean, I have some sympathy here. It shouldn't, to me, 600 on the Great Ponds makes sense, but on streams and connections of water bodies between tributaries,
That's a big setback.
250 is still very,
That whole side of the road can shed water in that direction.
It's literally gotta go.
I know,
60
no,
feet.
I know exactly where you are, because you go down to the corner,
I'd understand if it was going
you've
down
got
into
you've got the doggy care and the, what was the name of the other place there, the rehab place?
Yeah.
Same thing, there's a berm that goes up,
Yeah.
and then it's straight down to the embankment, and the water can't get in there, but it's considered a resource at that point. But
I'm just thinking if you guys can get, we don't have to do it all tonight, I just was curious.
maybe in that case, where it is, to me, that water body simulates more of a stream than it does a.
Yeah,
Where
that's
we're
what
talking
it's
about.
really.
250 would be, it would still be very conservative, but I think 600 is just,
I think if you even brought back to, like a 500 or
No, it isn't on
400,
that map.
it
but
would clean
it's-
up a few of the.
Yeah, although
well, I think,
Main Street.
what do we
Any
have,
river,
what do we have? 75?
Yeah.
Panther Run is over here.
But you can make an exception for
And they
Panther
got
Run, because that is a
600
unique
foot.
It is
water-
unique, yeah.
I think with that unique water body, the 250 would be,
I-
to me, would be
I
reasonable.
remember.
I mean, we've got
the
development right
shoreline
down
zone,
there
but I
with
didn't
cul-de-sacs
realize
and
we
everything.
changed that.
Yeah, and that
And it's weird,
Panther
it's
Run
where
in
it
States.
loops, and then it goes back away.
Oh, yeah, it's a
not
whole,
even
it's
near
a,
it,
it's a
just
snake,
that one
yeah.
snake part that comes in.
Yeah,
Kevin,
might
you have any
see it
thoughts?
better on here.
Yeah, it's this, so his lot is.
No, I agree that the 250 is probably more appropriate for that.
Yeah, it's those three,
Yeah.
4 lots.
Well, it would change a lot of them if we move it to 250.
But even if you go up Mill Street, I mean, all those houses right there next to the street on Mill Street right there,
Yeah, we're
those are
600.
still all in shoreland.
Yeah. And they all drain down
Those
to
go
Main
down.
Street.
Yeah, well, this goes down towards there.
Kind of hard
but
to see.
these ones up here, you're right, they go towards Main Street.
Pick up the T-shaped lot.
Yeah, so he's,
I guess that's
This
something we
one
can
right
consider
there.
for,
Yeah. And as you can see, it's a pretty already difficult lot to work with. But
Oh, this thing is so sensitive.
yeah, it's only what, 60
But
feet
that's-
wide or something? It's
that's
crazy.
I'm
Panther
guessing that
Run.
somebody cut
Panther
that
Run,
lot out of the
600
middle
foot.
of the,
Yeah,
Shoreline zone.
one in the middle.
one in the middle of the square one got cut out.
Onto this lot, and he said it was once village, and then we changed it.
So where's the board?
You want me to do some research with the state and see if I
Smaller
can-
is better.
Yeah.
I just think that, I mean, it's a unique water body. I don't think maybe 75 is not appropriate, but 250 is more than, to me.
It has to be 250 regardless.
Yeah. I mean, if the state says it's 250 and, you know, again, we're trying to make housing easier.
Yeah, if it's geographically impossible to,
Well, that
impact
just, with what's in that shoreline zone, you can't do anything. I mean, you've got the percentage of coverage in the lot, you're handcuffed. Small lots like that, I mean, you barely get the structure on it, let alone a driveway or anything.
Yep. The septic and everything else that goes along with it.
So I'm just gonna pull this up real quick because I got it right here. Might as well.
There we go.
This is the color version of what you guys were looking at. So the yellow is all currently shoreland zone. It would turn to village, which is less restrictive, smaller lot sizes, more lot coverage. These two, three, yeah. Up here, they're kind of a red and
Yeah,
purple.
your other one's a little sliver, yeah.
Are
Commercial.
commercial, but they're currently in shoreland. So we would be able to put those more into commercial. The White Pines Motel, they're the ones, White Pines Motel, yeah.
Yep.
They're the ones that have requested this because they're exploring the possibility of converting it to a multifamily at some point. Not allowed in shoreland, would be allowed in commercial with the proposed changes. So,
Why are we, I'm just curious, why do you have that one sliver of purple that goes up? It kind of looks like a lightning bolt almost. It goes up, touches the red. Just 'cause
Right
you don't
here?
want- You don't want to split the lot?
does it fall in the water line?
yeah, so with this one, we followed the lot lines instead of actually following the 600 foot,
Oh, so those-
which we could, but
But there is a lot that kind of runs parallel to Clearwater?
yes. right here.
Yeah, inside that long, narrow.
Yeah. This thing right here.
It just seems weird that we'd have that one.
It's probably part of a lot across the street, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so the reason this one next to it is in purple is because it clips the shoreland down here. So because the shoreland is touching it, we left it purple. We just left everything that the shoreland touched purple so that the lots weren't being split by zones.
I guess if they wanted to petition, they could come in and make their statement.
Yeah, I mean, if they wanted, like we did on the other one where we just went by the zone, we could, but.
This just clarifies if you guys are.
Just,
I'm in favor of doing that anyway.
I thought you were just doing an offset from Clearwater when I looked at it. I didn't realize it was a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, the lot is in the middle, the road goes through it for some reason. I don't know what exactly is up with that, but.
Almost like a spite strip.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that one could end up bringing in some discussion for the public hearing, but
Are those two maps separate, or is that all in one?
Well, if for display purposes, it's in two, but it would be under one shoreline zoning map.
one article.
Oh, I gotcha.
We could split it. When you guys set the warrant, you guys could split it if you'd like, because it might make sense to do that, so that if one fails.
Here hating it and here not
Yes.
caring.
Right.
And that these people.
Yep, absolutely. I think it's a
You
good
run
idea.
that risk if you lump them together.
Yep. All right, I think we're just about there.
Get the last one.
Which is the business license?
Business license, yeah.
Yeah. So this one isn't one that you guys need to review really, but typically you review all the ordinances before they go to the select board. This proposed amendment to the business license ordinance essentially removes the requirement to renew your business every year. It's now just going to be a one-time deal, and they won't be doing renewals, which I don't believe they are even currently doing renewals. It's in the ordinance, but I don't know that they come in every year.
Simpler is better.
Doesn't really change much for you guys, doesn't change anything because it has no involvement with the planning board really. And doesn't really change anything for code enforcement either, but it's really just in front of you guys for informational purposes. The fire protection ordinance was supposed to be coming with this package. That's now put off till next month before the revisions are done. So that won't make our stuff, which it doesn't need to come before us for public hearing anyways, so it's fine, but just want to let you guys know because it was discussed at one point. And that is it.
The fire ordinance changes it, what, 4,800 to 5,000 square feet?
I believe that's the current
I think so.
proposed amendment. Yeah.
Subdivision
Yeah, I think
status.
Wayne is on, so.
But to trigger sprinkler systems.
Would subdivision still be?
Yeah. It wouldn't affect subdivision. It's essentially just for large residential structures.
Yeah.
There's also a section that I believe they're putting in that would allow you to remove like a garage, for example, if you do a firewall that meets the requirements.
Yeah.
Remove it from that total square footage number?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Wayne's on if
Yes.
you guys have any
That's the
other
gross measurement, so.
Is the 5,000,
Houses.
Kim, or is that floor space?
It includes the
Or
basement though.
Yeah, basement, garage.
is that?
Yeah, essentially, and I believe it would still include a porch that has a roof.
By a roof.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. And Wayne, is that a 2-hour firewall?
Yes.
Yeah. Instead of a regular. Yeah. So it's a little bit more.
It's a double layer then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you get to take that out of your total calculation.
Wayne, right now, for subdivisions that require sprinklers, what type of systems are we predominantly seeing going in the homes? And I'm just for maybe for the board, but for my own, what typical cost is that to a structure?
So I did an inspection today, and I actually asked that question, and that particular system was between 10 and 11,000.
And is that Is it a tank in the basement, essentially?
Yeah, that's the tank with a pump versus somebody using their domestic well to supply their sprinkler system. The issue there comes in is the well pump needs to be upsized to meet the flow capacity. So there's an additional charge to do that.
So is there a reservoir basically that's kind of like a first flush and then the pump has to kick in to offset that? Or is it all straight from the pump?
It's
Depends on the system too.
you have to have the capacity in your well like you'd have in your water tank in your basement. So the domestic water sprinkler systems don't require quite as much water as the pump and tank type of system, but it's still pretty close. So, you know, the pump and tank system is generally a 300-gallon tank. One of the more recent applications that was thinking of doing the Uponor type system, that's the domestic water system. It wasn't as much water that had to be in the well casing, but it was still pretty significant.
So to do that, you obviously have to over drill your well to have the volume in the well casing.
You got to upgrade your pump to a 3-phase conversion and all that. It's added expense.
And your line, that's the bigger come to the house.
Right. You gotta have we have like inch or 2 inch.
I think it's an inch, yeah, if you want that flow.
Yeah.
The where the domestic water supply type of systems are really beneficial is anywhere where you got public water.
Right. Yeah.
That makes them really easy to install them in those
Pretty
areas.
Limited amount of rain.
Yeah, I don't think we have any.
Yeah,
just Main
extremely.
Street, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Honey
if
Hill.
you're there anyway, you're within 1,000 feet of a hydrant.
Honey Hill, it just went in. They went all on public water.
They did.
Yeah.
Yep. They went public water instead of doing the sprinkler system.
Because they could.
Yeah, they could. It was right there.
Okay.
And then the other thing, of course, the select board asked about having an appeals process for the fire protection ordinance. And the other thing we were looking at that Kevin had mentioned was the solar, the battery storage.
Yes.
Solar, adopting that NFPA ordinance, that NFPA standard as an ordinance, so that we're more in line with the newer technologies that are out there now, because that's changing fast. And in the past year, had 4 requests for battery storage systems. Those were all in residential homes, but it was mentioned the other night at one of the meetings, I think it was the select board meeting, that companies are starting to ask about putting in battery storage
facilities
to support the grid.
Yeah, there's a large
Commercial battery storage.
Yeah, there's a large one going in Gorham. That's before the board.
Yeah.
Where do they get their load from? Do they just take it off?
Solar.
Yeah,
and
they're
store
all
they capture it
solar.
and
They store it in the
basically store
battery,
it.
and then they can release it at their to offset peak demand and get a higher rate.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
So it's right now, solar, it happens when the sun's out, but unless you have battery, but there's some concerns with those batteries because they're all lithium based. So
Yeah.
All right, so public hearing in March.
March 20th.
We'll have all this stuff updated and ready to go on the website.
So
Copies.
I guess we can talk about it maybe later, but I'm just thinking about structuring that meeting because we're going to have the solar farm application before us.
Yep.
Typically, we've done the ordinances first. So I think we just want to think that through how we want to do that. Do we want to do the solar farm application? Either way, we're going to get...
Well, most of the crowd will leave after the solar farm application
Yeah.
goes through, so if we want to do that first.
I think it's going to depend on what we get for people, because if we send out 105 certified letters, we may get some interest from people with the zone map changes.
Yeah.
So if we get 20 or 30 people for that, then I think we kind of have to assess the room.
Well, I think you could do I mean, these ordinances, I think, generally going to go relatively quick.
Right.
I think the only one you're going to get hung up on is the solar one.
Yeah.
So you do your public presentation for the ordinances, put the solar maybe last, and then that just kind of flows into the next body.
Yeah. I mean, I think
Either way, it's
wait
going
and see.
Yeah, either way, and maybe we'll get some more information from the attorney too about moratoriums and
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what the select board does too, because
What do they-
they're going to meet before that, right?
Yep.
So they'll perhaps make a,
Yeah.
Because the ping pong, the ball went back to your side.
Yeah. No, you have a good point. And Bob will be back for that meeting. That's the plan.
that's good.
So you can leave it up to him. Let him decide.
And only thing I had is just a little information for you folks, not that it affects you in any way, but does affect applicants. Army Corps now is regulating wetlands and impact fees for that. So now any wetland over 5,000 square feet is subject to impact fees from Army Corps.
Now, is that just if that wetland is filled, or if it's just on the property?
Altered, yep.
Oh, wait, how much was it?
5,000
5,000
square feet of wetland alteration.
if it's altered, then that's when you go to the Army Corps?
Anything over 5,000.
Not if your lot is 5,000.
No, anything you alter 5,000. It used to be under DEP when they regulated, it was up to 15,000.
Yeah.
That would be the trigger mechanism. And it's expensive because in Cumberland County, I believe it's $6.03 per square foot impact. So when you go to 5,001 square feet, you're looking at over $30,000 bill.
Is that forested wetlands or?
Any
wetland?
Any wetland. Yeah.
Hydric soils? basically?
Not hydric soils, it's to be wetlands. So if it's classified as a wetland, forested, it's even more stringent, I think, if you're insignificant.
Are they already mapped?
No.
So someone,
These aren't just significant, they're all wetlands.
so someone has to do an investigation on site and.
So you have a single-family home, they want to put a driveway in, go across the wetland, they impact 5,020 square feet. It's $30,000 extra they didn't account for.
That helps with affordable housing.
Yeah.
And that's an Army Corps' argument, and they've got a point, is Maine has been the one holdout. New England has already been under these rules for some time. So Maine has been the outlier, so now Army Corps wants to bring Maine into compliance. So if you're in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, those are the rules that have been in effect, so. But, other than Vermont, probably Maine's prices are, you know, that impact fee is less of a percentage of the property value, but in Maine, it's a bigger percentage, because look at Maine, we probably have more wetlands than maybe all of New England.
I think we do. We're like 30% of the state is wetland.
Yeah. So it hits home, and that's a per county impact fee, so it changes if you're in York, but Cumberland's around 603, I think.
Who gets the fee?
Army Corps.
Army Corps keeps it.
And I think I think there's limitations that it has to be reutilized in the watershed impacted. Because DP and it has always had programs, you know, where they give grants and funds. So it usually comes out of that impact fee for restoration or improvements.
You know, projects I was.
Just make it hard. It's harder on you guys. It's harder on us engineering firms because we get to break the bad news to everybody too. So
We used to have to like donate land or even sometimes create.
you
wetlands.
can. There are opportunities, but that's sometimes very difficult.
Yeah, for just a.
For the
home
conservation
development.
land, because that's a big ratio difference too. But that is an option, but right now they seem to be more in tune to take the money.
Probably doesn't matter if they're man-made wetlands or not.
There could be some argument made on that, but I mean, there's a limitation to how long they've been man-made too.
Yeah, a certain date, right?
A lot of the vernal pools are man-made.
A lot of the vernal pools that we have seen have been results of sometimes skidder ruts and things like that.
Well, a lot of them are made just to for water for animals.
Dug the wet areas?
So staff communications?
Yeah, that's our last item, right?
Yep.
If anyone has it, do you guys have anything?
No, just that Honey Hill, which is Raymond Hills, is finishing up. They're kind of on their last few houses. Boulder Bend, which is Hillside Drive. First two houses are getting ready for installation. And Woodstone, first building permits going out, so that first house will be getting started, well, really second if you count that first one at the bottom. And Rolling Brook, I don't know that we really have much for vacant lots left. So some of these subdivisions you guys have approved the last few years, we're getting there.
The challenge we have with Rolling Brook is it's changed hands, ownership, and it's getting the improvements completed, the final road improvements completed.
We really don't have much. I haven't really talked to any people about new subdivisions coming in, a couple of small back lots. There may be one subdivision in the next couple of years, but I think they're still a ways out, which would be kind of right next to Raymond Hill. But yeah, there really isn't much. There will be a summer camp coming in for a dining hall addition, probably in April or May, but there really isn't much else, coming up for projects. So maybe a quiet summer, possibly, for you guys. We'll see.
Move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.